Welcome, everybody. Today's webinar is Ask the Experts About Planting for Hummingbirds. We have three gardening experts here. I want to clarify that none of them have degrees in ornithology. We are not here to talk about the scientific part of hummingbirds or their life cycle or anything. We're mainly here to talk about feeding and attracting hummingbirds to your garden. So we're going to tell you what to plant. And I will do a brief introduction, and then I will allow each panelist to introduce themselves. I am Diane Blazek. I'm with National Garden Bureau. I'm the executive director. We also have Gail Pabst. She is on our chat, so she's going to be putting a lot of links in that will be helpful for you. And by the way, I saved the chat at the end of this webinar, and then I will send it out as an attachment to an email that I'll send to everybody that registered for this webinar. So you'll be able to see all those links again once you get the email. But let's jump in here. Our three panelists are Justin from Costa Farms, Katie from Pan American Seed, and Marion Miesenberg from Darwin Perennials. So to go back through that order, Justin, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Justin. I am Director of Research and Development here at Costa Farms. We are the largest grower of houseplants in the world, but we also grow quite a few outdoor tropical plants, as well as annuals and perennials, especially in the southeastern United States.
Excellent. Okay, Katie.
Yep. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Katie Rotella. I'm the Public Relations and Digital Manager for Ball Horticultural Company. And in this capacity, I'm representing Pan American Seed and Keep Seed. They are a seed producer of annuals and perennials, vegetables, cut flowers, and we're a global company on just about every continent in 20 countries.
Awesome. Thank you. And now Marion.
Hi, I'm Marion Miesenberg. I am the marketing specialist for Darwin Perennials. So thank you for attending and hope we can answer most of your questions today.
I'm sure you can. So that would be great. So the format today is we'll have a couple questions and points to make in the beginning, and then we're going to go through our presentation to show you some of these specific varieties and plant classes that are really good to plant for pollinators. Of course, there are certain ones for certain areas, and we'll talk about that. But right before we started the webinar, we were talking about have the hummingbirds arrived yet? And we're going to ask Gail to post a link. If you guys have not seen this online map that shows the hummingbird migration route and then has the dates. And Marion, I think you just said that you saw them in northern Missouri.
Yeah, that's right. In northern Missouri, they're just about ready to hit southern Illinois. I was really excited. There were like lots of little hummingbirds all in Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, on the Gulf Coast. So yeah, they're almost here. And I think when the flowers start to bloom, they'll know, right? We're heading north. So yeah, very excited.
Exactly. And Justin, you said that you get them year round because you're in South Florida. So lucky you, lucky everybody who's in the very southern part of the United States.
Yeah, or those coastal regions too, over in California. When it's temperate and the flowers are in bloom, when there's nectar to be had, then that's where you'll find hummingbirds.
And it's so funny, they just know like when it's time. And I think in the meantime, it's important then to put out your hummingbird feeder because sometimes there's not a lot of plants available for them to feed off of. So during this time, I think in the early months, definitely a feeder is very helpful for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of my next questions was, why use plants to attract hummingbirds? We know there are feeders and you can do that, but why would you want to plant some of these varieties that we're going to be talking about today?
Well, certainly they're a way to beautify your landscape and provide natural habitat. And again, not a hummingbird expert, but I believe the real food source is probably better than the manufactured food source that you buy and fill your hummingbird feeder with.
Yeah, natural nectar that's, high in that natural sugar content, in the colors that are attracting the hummingbirds to your garden. Also, if you've got foliage and area for them to hide from predators, that's always great. And then also at certain times of the year to have flowers and foliage that also invite other insects that the hummingbirds might supplement some of their intake of nutrients and protein, the small percentage of them that also eat the spiders and some flies and, a few of the like gnats that are maybe plaguing your garden, they can come in and kind of take care of a few of those as well.
Yeah, and I think too, having multiple food sources is important because they do feed up to 1,000 times a day. So I was like, is that for real? But yeah, they do. And so having supplements of protein and nectars is really important for their health.
Yeah, and you don't have to feel like you have to be the sole source for every hummingbird in the neighborhood. You just got to do your parts. You can't possibly plant, well, maybe you can plant 2,000 plants in your yard, but if you can't, don't feel bad. You're just adding to that kind of that roadmap for the hummingbirds to come and visit, the spaces that they need to get food.
Great. So I've got one quick question, I think, and then I've got one more, which will be a long answer. So the first one, are there certain colors of flowers? I know that the types of flowers, they like the tubular ones, but what about colors for hummingbirds? All the feeders seem to be red. So do we gravitate toward red? Do they like them all? What's kind of the key there?
From what I've read, it's red. That's probably a primary. Hummingbirds they sense nectar first, but color is up there. What they don't sense scent the way that maybe some other pollinators do. So color is going to be important to them. And while they won't reject a white flower or a blue flower, if they're in the right shape and they have that pollen content, they are finding almost like a beacon in the wilderness of red. And in those red pinky shades are going to be more attractive, which is probably why most plastic hummingbird feeders have that little element of red in them.
I can say from personal experience in the morning, the first plant that the hummingbirds go to in my yard is actually purple salvia, and then they go to the red ones.
Mhm.
And so, it's easy to focus on the red, but definitely don't overlook the other colors, especially if that's your personal planting palette, because, you're planting for yourself as well as the hummingbirds.
Good point. Yes. Okay. So what I was going to ask next is, are there certain flowers, which I already kind of spoiled that surprise. We all know that it's tubular shaped flowers, but this is time for our presentation. And so I'm not sure how many slides we have here, about 20 or so. And Marion, I think you're up first with our first plant and variety.
Sure. Agastache Summerlong. It's a new introduction for Darwin perennials, actually. And what I like about this plant, it actually blooms earlier and blooms longer than a traditional Agastache. All Agastache is wonderful for hummingbirds. But for this one, you do have that extra bloom time. And we had this at Cast. We must have had like 20 plants out at least, maybe 30. And it was unbelievable how the hummingbirds came and just fed off the plants all day long. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, they were there so long, we even named them Howie and Helen. And it was just so cool to see them interacting with the plant. I've never seen anything like it in my life. So definitely Agastache Summerlong. If you don't have it in your garden, you definitely want to add it. Great plant.
The common name for Agastache is hummingbird mint.
Hummingbird mint, yeah. And again, like the smell is not something that they can pick up on, but the bright colors and the tubular form of the blossom is just, rich in nectar as well, is just something that they really love. So yeah.
And you said CAST. So just as a clarification, CAST is California Spring Trials, and that's where all the originating breeders in our industry are putting out, not all, but a lot of the annual and perennial breeders are putting out their new introductions. So I will say now that Summerlong is brand new, probably won't be found in stores this spring and summer. It'll be next year, right, Marion?
Yeah, correct. Probably next spring. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that clarification.
That's just a
Yes.
little teaser for everybody is what
Yes,
we're
it's
doing.
just a
So
teaser.
yeah,
But
yeah,
any Agastache will work, so.
yeah.
And I'm up next with Aquilegia. This is an early bird series. That's the name of the series. You can see how many different colors it comes in. The typical name for this is Columbine. What you'll like most about this is the name early bird is literally, it's an earlier flowering perennial that you'll have in full color, maybe even before you have leaves on the tree in most of the Midwest. So this is a plant that will get out there earlier for those hummingbirds. If you got any early birds, they will be able to feed off of your Columbine. And we do have some reds and yellows, which are definitely attractive, but like Justin says, they're not opposed to blues and whites. And so these little center pieces are rich in nectar for them to feed. Zone 3A to 9B, I mean, that covers up to Canada, kind of. So this is a perennial that'll come back every year for you in all those areas. So the other part I love about it is woodlands. If you've got some shade in your garden, you can still have that Columbine because it won't be completely shaded by summer leaf foliage in your trees. You'll still enjoy the color. And then by the time it's done flowering, you're onto your summer plants and into the next stage of gardening.
So good point. We've got one for the early part of the year.
Buddleia Chrysalis. This plant Buddleia was primarily bred for its compactness and its floriferous flowering. And this is important because it's not like your traditional Buddleia where, you have this big giant Buddleia, which is beautiful, but it's compact enough to put it like in a patio container. And I've even used it in a hanging basket. It's hardy to zone 5, which is great for a Buddleia. Also, I mean, I love the rich cranberry color, which attracts the hummingbirds. And again, the floriferous flowering is key here because the hummingbirds can feed off of this all the way till frost. It's a great plant to have. It comes in several different colors, steel blue, blue, pink, and white.
Hey, Marion, is this one a sterile variety so it's available to our friends in the Pacific Northwest?
It is sterile. It does not have a certification, but the testing has come back sterile, but it's not certified.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, our friends on the West Coast will be interested in purchasing it, but we've trialed it thoroughly and it is a sterile plant.
Excellent.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that question, because with it being the year of the Buddleia, we have gotten a lot of questions about that. And there's a couple messages that we have going along with this is there's right plant, right place. There are, I believe, 9 states where the Buddleia is on either the watch list or the invasive species. But we do know that Oregon, which was one of the first ones, is now saying that these sterile cultivars are okay to plant, to sell and to plant. So it is very good to see that there's a lot of progress being made with the breeding where they are either sterile or a very low seed set. I think Oregon State University has the threshold set at 2%. So that's a very, very low seed set. So kudos to all the breeders that are coming out with Buddleias that are either sterile or have a low seed set. Thank you. Oh, Cleome, sorry, this one's me because it's an AAS winner. I forgot that I was talking about a few of these. So this is Sparkler Blush, and it is an AAS winner because, of course, we run the AAS trialing program from here. So we wanted to include this one. It's really good because it is both heat and drought tolerant. It's a little bit shorter than the most Cleome, but it still adds a little bit of height in your garden. And I like it because it has like that airy feel to it. So try Cleome Sparkler Blush.
Ooh, I know. Delphinium Red Lark. What a beautiful plant, right? In its full glory, it's as red as a Coca-Cola can. It's just amazing. As it ages, it does fade some, but wow, what a pollinator attractor. First of all, the color, and then the easy access to the blooms for the hummingbirds. It's also hardy to zone 5, which is sometimes unique for Delphinium because they're not all hardy to zone 5. It's just a beautiful plant to have in your garden, or you could plant it in a container as you see here as a thriller. And then you can also add other plants around it, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Kniphofia Glowstick. It's important to make sure that your blooms continue on through like July and August to continue feeding the hummingbirds. And Kniphofia Glowstick definitely fits that picture. It has nectar-rich blooms. It's great for cut flowers, and it's just a lovely plant that shines through the fall. I'm not sure if you're aware, but hummingbirds do usually return to their home, which is Costa Rica or Central America or Mexico, in September and October. So it's important that you have late perennial blooms to support their journey back home. Love this plant.
And this type of Cuphea, which is sometimes called cigar plants, in a different form, like something like the honeybells, where the blooms actually are a lot more tubular. Sweet Talk is kind of almost burst open. So it's those tubulars, but they're burst open with like little flags on the end. And Sweet Talk was just launched last year. So this is its first time at garden centers. You can watch for what's here is a lavender splash, but there is also a red and a deep pink. What I like about this Cuphea is it has, besides being bright and kind of frothy, it really stands up to the heat. So when you're talking about, okay, we talked about earlier spring and how to feed them early. How do we keep them going in the summertime? This is a natural nectar, hummingbird feeder. That if you don't want to feed with an external hummingbird feeder, planting a bunch of Cuphea and garden plants like this is a way to go to keep them fed. So this is the procumbens style, again, the kind of blown open, but there are several different types of Cuphea that are all have that pollinator attractiveness to them.
And Katie, I can vouch for the heat resistance. We had it in our trial garden in Miami last year, and it stood up really, really well, even to a Miami summer.
Yeah, and it does resist that odema too. So when you get into those humid areas or when the roots take up too much water and like cells start to burst, it really resists that. So if it's humid or if it's hot and too much rain, that plant can still power through and keep its flowers.
Great, thank you. So fuchsia of all types is a good hummingbird attractant, a good hummingbird feeder. I know anytime I see these in hanging baskets at a garden center or, when we're out there traveling for casts, the hummingbirds are certainly flying out all around them. This particular series is called Ballerina, and so they are all named for ballet poses. I think there are about 6 to 9 different varieties. So beautiful in hanging baskets and perfect then for hummingbirds because they're hanging up and they're away from anything on the ground like predators. And then the other one is hostas. And so obviously you need a hosta that's going to bloom and has some prolific blooms on them. I know when I have my hostas blooming, which is usually not until usually end of July or early August here in the Chicagoland area, but man, they just love those blooms. So this particular one is called Love Story. And if you note down there, you see our little logo that 2024 is the year of the hosta. So we are certainly celebrating hostas for not only their beauty in the shade, but also the pollinator food that they provide, not only hummingbirds, but bees also. But bees is our webinar in a couple more days. So we won't talk about them today.
Impatiens. So if you have more shade, you might be looking at all of the flowers we've looked at so far and be like, well, that's all full sun, but I live in a woodland area or I'm in an apartment and I only get morning sun. What can I plant that will survive and then also feed, pollinators? Then you can try Impatiens. This is the Walleriana type. So a typical garden Impatiens, and specifically it's Beacon, which has kind of taken over the industry as the one that is high resistance to Impatiens downy mildew, which a lot of other Walleriana could be susceptible to. So if you are in a pressure area for that disease, you want to look for Beacon Impatiens to make sure that your plants will survive. But then we keep breeding new colors into Beacon. So brand new lipstick is new for 2024 on the right. And we even are coming out with gorgeous pearls. So that blue pearl in that mix, Pearl Island, is also, if you just need a mix ready to go in a basket, those will work just as well. So that's why we love them. They come in so many different colors for that attractiveness, and then you can customize to the colors you love. But then you're also able to grow and feed them in a shade application as well. And Lantana, I think the opening screen had a picture of a Lantana with the hummingbird as well. This is also just that trailing Lantana, which is unique and kind of a unique habit. There's several different sizes of Lantana on the market, and you're in a coastal area, could be the size of a shrub. But if you're in the north, you just get typical summer weather. There's Lantana that do well in your landscape, and then there's also some that do very great and small on a tabletop if you're in a small kind of lifestyle situation, just a patio. And then you have something like this. This is passion fruit, which trails out of the basket and hangs, which Diane mentioned. Anything that hangs or vines or trails, a hummingbird's going to kind of prefer, I would say, just because they're away from the ground where the cats and frogs and things can nip at them. They're a lot more mobile, where they can perch up high or hang at an eye level where you can see them kind of hanging out your window. And passion fruit specifically has those tropical colors that are really kind of like vibrant and eye-catching. So it fades or matures from these orangey pinks into the hot fuchsias. And it just kind of shows like a little bit of a tropical look to your garden. I think it's nice and scented as well. And it's also great for butterflies. It's the perfect little pad for butterflies to land on. But hummingbirds like them for different reasons. And it doesn't set a lot of seed, so it's going to continuously just put out more blooms. So that's another good piece for this particular Lantana. You're just going to get a lot of flowers all the way until the frost. In Lobelia too, there's different types of Lobelia. There's the perennial Lobelia, like the speciosa type. Our starship Lobelia in that red is absolutely one you should think about as a tender perennial for your garden cardinal flower. But this is kind of a daintier flower. Definitely made for baskets. You wouldn't necessarily put this type of Lobelia in the ground, but again, we're talking something to hang eye level around your patio in a window box. It's got those colors and the slight burst open of those tubular flowers. It's a great annual to have. Also very tolerant of the cooler weather, so you can have these in that morning sun or the slightly shady areas and still enjoy them.
So Mandevilla are tropical vines or shrubs, but they're easy enough to grow that you can treat them like an annual if you live in an area that gets frosty or freezing temperatures. Mandevilla typically come in shades of red, which is the traditional hummingbird favorite, pink and white, but there are some newer varieties, including some yellow ones. And one of the things that's just absolutely fantastic about Mandevilla for the garden is that it's heat resistant, humidity resistant, drought tolerant, as well as deer and rabbit resistant. So it's almost a plant that you can plant it and forget it, but the hummingbirds definitely won't forget it. Another subtropical shrub, Cape honeysuckle, botanical name is Tecomaria. It comes in a few different colors, mostly shades of red, orange, and yellow. This is kind of a shrubby vine. It works really well if you grow it up against a pergola or another structure. It won't really climb, but it appreciates the support. And it has these clusters of flowers just all summer long, irresistible to hummingbirds and butterflies in my experience. And again, being a subtropical, you can plant this in a super hot spot and it's not going to be bothered at all by the heat.
And as a design comment, putting that orange flower in that orange pot is stunning. So good job on that one.
Thank you. Close relative of the Cape honeysuckle, common name is Esperanza. Botanical name is Tecoma stans. So this is another subtropical shrub or small tree that you can totally grow as an annual. Works really well decks and patios if you don't want to plant it in the landscape. And has these big clusters of yellow flowers. There are some newer varieties, including some great ones from our friends at Ball that bring in some new colors, some shades of red and orange if yellow's not your style. But really, really easy care for just about anybody.
Would that be full sun, Justin?
Yes, yep. All of these subtropicals do best in full sun. You can grow them in part shade. You just may not get quite as many flowers from them.
Great, thanks.
But what I like to tell people between part shade and sun, if you don't have one in sun to compare it against, you probably don't know the difference.
Okay.
Here in South Florida, firebush, botanically known as Hamelia patens, is another just tried and true plant you can't go wrong with for butterflies or hummingbirds. It has these orange tubular flowers, purple shaded foliage, and just incredible heat performance, drought resistance, deer and rabbit resistance. Just an absolute winner if you're looking for something that's going to flower nonstop all summer and easy care and attract the hummingbirds and butterflies.
So Monarda Balmy, it's a dwarf Monarda. It's not as tall as some of them. It's under 12 inches. But what's really cool about this plant, first of all, the so floriferous, and which is again important for hummingbirds. It's going to bloom, June, July. And the bonus is that it is also deer and rabbit resistant. So a great plant to add to your hummingbird collection. And plus the color is just beautiful. Penstemon cherry sparks. This one is more proliferous than most Penstemon. It has great heat tolerance. And again, the color is hummingbird attractor along with the tubular flowers. Just a great addition to your garden. And also it is hardy to zone 5, which is really important for us folks in the Chicagoland area and further north.
In the Pentas class or star cluster, these are annuals that are probably what you'll see in most garden centers like round 2. So you've gotten all the excitement out of the way for, Mother's Day or end of April, and you've planted your pansies and petunias, and maybe you were a little neglectful or some bad weather happened and you have to go back to the store mid-June or early July to get more color for your garden. That's when Pentas really shines. It loves that heat. It loves that sun. And so when you're going to replace things out of a mixed container or a landscape that have kind of passed away or gone south, you can replace it with Pentas, and it comes in a lot of different colors as well that are similar to what you might have put in the garden in early spring. So you've got your lavenders and pinks, reds and whites. So this round 2 will really help. Now the star cluster bursts open, but you can see the umbral at the base is really tubular. So for you, you're going to enjoy the star, but the butterflies and the hummingbirds are going to get their beaks inside deep down into that throat and grab all the nectar. So great little landing pad, and also a great access point for hummingbirds. And you'll like the way that it thrives through that next half of the gardening season. You can feel like a winner, and not like you failed in early spring. You can come back strong with the next round of plants. And in the Petcoa, that might be a new class that some of you might not know about. Petcoa has been on the market for several years, but we've really enhanced it in 2024 with Petcoa Caliburst and Petcoa Enviva. Those are 2 different series. And Petcoa is a combination of petunia and caliburcoa. So we've got the best of both worlds here. And you've got these kind of cupped flowers, but larger than a caliburcoa, but maybe not as wide open as a petunia. They thrive in the humidity and the heat. They also will take a little bit more of the earlier spring weather. So they'll toughen up earlier. You'll see them in flower earlier. What I also like is they're less sticky. Sometimes petunias can be really sticky. I love petunias, but sometimes when you're deadheading or maintaining them, you get this like sticky feeling on your fingers. These don't have that. They're more like the caliburcoa part of it. So it's just a great way to kind of experience both great aspects of both classes in one petunia or one Petcoa. Caliburst on the right was a stunner last year at our California spring trials when we launched it to the industry. And there was a hummingbird inside the greenhouse that would not leave. Just wherever the yellow Caliburst was, he was visiting, and he held his territory down, was chasing everybody away. So Petco is new, mostly for annuals, great for baskets, but think about all the different mixes. You can mix in this plant with a lot of other colors as well to kind of draw them in.
And Katie, the Caliber series is from seed, whereas historically Calibrachoas or Petcoas have been from vegetative cuttings, correct?
Right. Yes. So when you have something from seed, that usually means it's more widely available in mail order catalogs. So you could actually search for Caliburst and start it from seed. It's a little bit more economical that way, or a chance for you to get more in a tray, in a seed starting tray. While the vegetative side, you can maybe order a couple like small young plants through a catalog, but generally you'd see them in ready to go baskets or pots at stores. You'd have to wait until it's safe to plant in your area to get those.
Oh, I added that picture because that was in my garden last year.
Oh, see, yeah, you
And that
trialed
just
it, yeah.
yeah, I had it, this is what I call my hummingbird garden. So I was planting it along the edge and yeah, it was beautiful.
And I love petunias. Pan American Seed is the home of the wave petunia. So the spreading, vigorous wave petunia. And there's so many different styles and sizes of petunia, from the very small micro tabletop type to the big kind of tidal wave or ground cover original wave purple classic. But all of them come in so many different colors. So you can still feed the hummingbirds and have a color that kind of speaks to your particular garden. So if you're a fan of red, white, and blue, you can have a hummingbird garden there with red, white, and blue. We've added, you can see the yellow on the left mixed in with that taffy morn color. So different colors within each of the mixes can also attract hummingbirds, and lots of great applications for wave petunias.
Salvias are the very first plants that the hummingbirds visit every morning in my garden, just unreliably. My favorite is black and blue, which is a tall variety that has really lovely blue flowers that come out of a black tube. There we go. Thank you, Diane. But there are so many really wonderful varieties of salvia. There are annual varieties, there are perennial varieties, there are tropical varieties. So there's almost a salvia for every garden. Like a number of the other plants that we've talked about, they're also deer and rabbit resistant, and a lot of them are drought tolerant. So it makes just enjoying hummingbirds and butterflies so easy with these plants.
And of course, I had to put in the AAS winter
Yes.
one. So the Salvia Summer Jewel series comes in white and pink and lavender and red. So I had to interject those to support the AAS, which you are seeing quite a few AAS winners in here.
Speaking of another winner, the Zahara series of zinnia. There's singles and doubles. There's tall types for cutting gardens. There's shorter types for borders. What I like about zinnia the most is that you could direct sow right in your garden. Most Midwest, northern gardens direct sow right when it's safe to plant and have gorgeous color in a couple weeks. So if you are not comfortable starting from seed indoors, you don't have a setup the way, people who start tomatoes and peppers inside. I still can't do that myself. But if you just have zinnia seed, you can start that in a pot right outside and watch it bloom in a matter of weeks. These are also great. They'll last until the fall. So this is great for fall color as well, depending on when you sow your seed. Comes in all different kinds of colors. And again, single types like the Starlight Rose here with that red kind of beacon center, or you have doubles that are kind of fluffier. And a lot of the new breeding is making them much more durable too. So some zinnias can go down to, powdery mildew or zinnia specific diseases, but a lot of them are making them a lot more durable in the landscape for neglectful gardeners, or just in environmental stress. It's just too dry or too hot. A lot of the times the new zinnia breeding is doing a fantastic job with overcoming that and just keeping the flowers blooming.
And last but not least is verbena. Now, there are several types of verbena, and I can certainly let Katie talk a little bit more about this. I just want to include this one, which is one of our newest AAS winners, and it's a tenuisecta. So it has that very fine foliage on it, and it almost acts more as a ground cover. And this particular one, Sweetheart Kisses, comes in these varying shades of pink and rose, and some even get to be almost pure white. So I wanted to bring up Sweetheart Kisses. Katie, do you have some others that you want to bring up?
I like the Bonariensis types as well. Those are they're very foliar, almost like a Gomphrena kind of in your garden, where it's a nice background filler piece with on the very tip of the stem is like the purple kind of burst of bloom that are attractive if you cut them and bring them inside, of course, but I guess the pollinators also love them, bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds for that little bit on the end there. And I think when you build a structure in your garden with a larger type of verbenas, it's places for insects to hide, it's places for them to perch, something kind of strong for the hummingbirds and pollinators to take a breath, take a moment, but still be sheltered in a sense to like get out of the sun for a while or to hide from a predator. So having different kinds of textures and places to gather for your wildlife in the garden is also great to have.
And you're right, the Bonariensis type, we have an AAS winner called Vanity, which Gail can put that link in the chat, because that is one of those tall, airy ones that is really good for pollinators. So, okay, thank you, everybody. What I'm going to do is stop sharing the screen so we can see your lovely faces. And we're going to continue on with some of the questions that we've gotten, but please feel free. You can put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. So here's some dilemmas, maybe. Somebody is asking, I've planted a hummingbird garden, but why don't they visit? What did I do wrong?
Ooh, I mean, first of all, it might be time of year, so just keep an eye on that tracker, because they might have already migrated when your flowers are in bloom. If you're way in the north, they have to start a long trek down. So even some of the males start to leave in August. So if you're in a isolated spot and you're maybe the only one gardening, maybe kind of urban area too, you might not see that if the concentration isn't there. You just might be missing. So their little path to find you. So that could be it. I would also watch out for any of how you get rid of weeds or how you try to maintain insects. I mean, if you're a gardener or a homeowner who likes to spray everything because you don't like bugs or sprays or anything like that, a hummingbird's gonna feel like you're putting up a barrier for them. So make it welcoming for them in the sense that you're not, just because the jug says it's for ants and wasps, spraying that could also inhibit a pollinator to come in as well. So that you might be creating this barrier around your garden. And that, you got to make that determination on if you want hummingbirds, you're gonna have to definitely dial back on any kind of the insecticides too.
Another thing too is they may be, when they reach their migration point, they start to nest right away. So they're busy nesting and taking care of their young, and then they come out again in July. So that may be going on as well if you don't see a lot of hummingbirds early on.
And like Katie said earlier too, it's important to provide overall habitat, not just food for them. So having some shrubs where they can nest and take cover, having a water source, a bird bath or something like that, where they can drink, especially if there's not a lot of water in your area, can make a huge difference in making your yard friendly to them or not. And then Katie mentioned chemicals, but also watch out for predators. If you have a house cat that you leave outside, or there are a lot of feral cats in your area, that may also be deterring them.
Yeah, so you mentioned nesting. So are there certain plants, trees, shrubs that maybe we could plant that would accommodate that nesting? I'm pretty sure that I found a hummingbird in my honeysuckle. They really liked a nest in the honeysuckle. Is there any others that you find they really like to build their nests in?
I think Weigela is also a good shrub type plant that they like to build nests in. So I think anything that is, has some type of foliage around it works well for them.
I don't think you can build a box for hummingbirds the way that you can build a box for your robins or your sparrows or things like that. You're even bats and butterflies. They're gonna look like a little bump on a branch. Like you're so tiny. I mean, baby birds, like baby eggs are like, I think they read the size of a navy bean. You know, they're tiny. And they're very soft and sticky. So you can plant maybe not pollinator friendly plants in the sense that they would feed off them, but plants that they could grab fuzz or stickiness and add it to their nests. So like stockies or lamb's ear, you can plant that and they'll try to, and you'll see little hummingbirds coming to incorporate that. Milkweed, you know, if you're attracting butterflies, but that sticky featheriness that comes out of milkweed can also be used there. I know in my garden, I brush the dog outside and some of the fluff gets everywhere, or they destroy, you know, something in the yard by toy wise. And they, you know, I see birds grabbing things all the time to make their nests. So, yeah, and they like it. They're going to like it up high, you know, that they're not nesting on the ground. They're nesting high up, which you might miss. You might have one in your yard. You don't know. They're teeny tiny.
Okay, good points. Let's see here. So what about planting in full sun versus shade? I think you guys were suggesting some plants that did well in both. So do they have a preference? I mean, what if I have totally shady garden, a woodland garden, like you said, Katie?
Yeah.
Are they going to come to woodland plants as easily as they'll come to ones in full sun?
I'm absolutely, there are options for shade gardeners, maybe not as prolific as the sun ones, but hostas do well in the shade and they'll still flower in the shade. And the impatiens for sure. Those early season that are not sheltered yet by the foliage of the trees. You know, if you can get some of those, they might not be as prevalent, but like right about now in this late April, there's still a little cooler nights. Columbine's looking great, daffodils, you know, all those things looking great. Sun and shade doesn't really mean a thing right now because there's no leaves on the tree. Unless you have a big house kind of shading things, or it travels across certain areas. There just happens to be more vibrant colors in the full sun options, but I think even down by you, Justin, in tropical areas, they'll visit you in the shade and they'll find those beacons.
Yep, absolutely.
I think one thing you need to be conscious of if you're going to use a hummingbird feeder, you don't want to really put that in full sun because the sugar creates this great home for bacteria. So you want to make sure that that's more in like part shade or some sunlight, but not sunlight like 10 hours a day. So that may be one thing you'd like to consider.
And Justin, I think you had mentioned water. So any simple bird bath, or is there another way we can provide water for our hummingbird friends?
You know, a shallow bird bath, a fountain. They don't seem to be super specific about the water source as long as it's easily accessible to them. You know, one thing that's nice about a lot of the fountains and the bird baths is that they're up off the ground. And so the birds feel like it's a little safer and easier to access them and quickly get to a protected spot if they sense a predator around.
Great. Okay. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about some hummingbird feeders? I mean, we're doing everything we can to provide them plants in our garden, but sometimes that's not quite enough, or we haven't planted enough. Got to plant more, right? So what about feeders? You know, I mean, none of you are from a manufacturer on there, but I think you have a lot of experience with that too. Any tips you have?
Yeah, the main thing, there's plastic, there's glass, there's all different types. You know, glass is durable, but it could shatter, you know, and so you got to make sure your garden is safe. If it falls or if wind knocks it around and it breaks, it's a little bit less durable maybe than some of the plastic. You definitely want to clean it. You don't want to hang it up in April and then clean it again in August when you put it away, like, or not clean it at all. Think about like a dog's water bowl or a cat bowl. You're gonna clean that and keep that fresh, just like you would any other pet and apparatus. You'd want to clean your feeders out generally at least once a week if you're an avid feeder. You don't have to put too much in the feeder because you're going to be cleaning it often. So you don't want to waste a lot of time making that kind of sugar water base. And the hummingbird's not going to eat or drink so much that they will like just suck it all down. You know, they're quite territorial, so you might not get like, you're not going to see 30 hummingbirds ever. You know, they're going to chase each other away. So it's really going to be one or two coming at different times of the day to enjoy that feeder. I also read that you keep it away from, and everybody wants to watch it out their window. Don't put it too close to your window because of collisions with your glass, especially if you have a big pane of window. You don't want birds in general just kind of like missing the skyline and accidentally hitting the glass and hurting themselves either. And if you can, like Marion said, hang it in an area that they can also perch, so they feed, and then go away to kind of sit and breathe for a little bit. Their little hearts are beating so fast and takes a lot of effort to eat, but they have to eat a lot. So they need to rest and perch while they do that. So if your feeder has almost like a little ledge at the top for them to just kind of pause for a little bit, you'll see them taking a break every once in a while. I also read that you're not supposed to use soap on your residue because of residue. It's really just warm, hot water, a slight vinegar solution, you know, white vinegar, a very, very diluted slight bleach, you know, is okay, but dilute. A bottle brush, you know, just to kind of get in any little crevices, just to kind of keep that, any mold or things. If you do hang it up in the sun, it has a tendency that sugar tends to, you know, get a little bit more moldy faster than if it's slightly shaded in a cooler temperature. And then you don't necessarily have to add any dye to this. If it's the right nectar recipe, then your hummingbirds will find it. And I think a 1-to-4 ratio, a 1-to-5 ratio is good. 1-to-5 if you don't want as many bees or wasps coming into your feeder as well. If they sense anything sugary, you're gonna have an attractor there as well. Nobody wants wasp stings, you know, amongst their garden experience.
Yeah, and I heard too that what you could do, you could purchase these little grills that fit like right by the opening of the feeder. So the wasps can't get inside and the hummingbird can still, you know, put their beak in there and their tongue and still get the nectar that they need. And also make sure that the hummingbird feeder is red, because if it's yellow, I've never seen a yellow one, I don't think, but maybe they're out there, but they do attract the bees and the wasps. So red is definitely the color to go with.
So Justin, you're our representative for the warmer climate. So do you keep a hummingbird feeder out all year?
No, I don't actually use a hummingbird feeder. I am lucky enough that I can keep them busy with the plantings.
Excellent. Good for you. We're all jealous.
Those tropical plants. Dang it.
And that was one of the questions that it looks like I forgot to ask, but as and I think I heard one of you say, hey, you know, at least just plant one plant for hummingbirds. But, you know, is there any kind of rule, any kind of guidelines, like how many plants should I do? And they are territorial. So if you have this plant that's loving on this Lantana and you have this plant that's loving on this Mandevilla, you know, it's is there any guidelines on number of plants?
I think to remember that they have to feed 1,000 to 2,000 visits to a plant a day, you know, to feed themselves and their little bodies. If that an ounce of nectar is about 60 to 80 plants. So in a good backyard, that's about right in my summer garden. You know, if I think about all the things I go and flats of plants and baskets that I buy, that's about when things that come up by themselves. That's a good sized backyard. So if you're getting a portion, if you're feeding them their midday snack, you know, that's fine. You don't have to plant their full day's meal. They're going to be visiting neighbors' yards. When they leave your yard, their competitor is going to come in. You know, they have like, you can almost time them. And I'm Marion, when we were in spring trials in California, there was Helen and Harry, you know, like they took turns, and then there's the afternoon, and then one went in the greenhouse and one would come here. So there's a whole little ecosystem of just kind of doing your part and planting what you can. And it really helps the plants out as well. There's 7,000 plus, you know, species of plants that rely on hummingbirds and bees and butterflies to be pollinated. So they're doing their best to attract them. And if you can grab a couple of those species and place them in your yard, make it a safe haven for them, a place for them to rest, a place for them to nest. you're gonna have a great experience in your garden.
Would you say that they are more active morning? Justin, I know that you said that they are quite often out there in the early morning, but is there a tendency for them to be more active morning, midday, evening, all of the above, because they have to eat 1,000 times a day?
I tend to see them in the morning here in Miami. When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, I would see them throughout the day. It could very well be that they're in my yard and during the heat of the day here in Miami, and I'm just not seeing them because I'm busy doing other things.
I've seen them in my yard basically all day, so there really isn't a time. One thing that I was really surprised by, I was just shocked. We had some heuchera coral bells, and we had the carnival series, which some of them do very well in the sun. And they were in the sun and they were blooming, and I was just shocked that this hummingbird loved the coral bells. It was something that I was not expecting at all, and but just wouldn't leave them alone. Fed there every single day. So that was a surprise to me, because wasn't really a bright flower, but I think because it was tall and the blooms were accessible, they just loved it. We enjoyed it.
I think that's the best part, that you enjoyed it. There's so many benefits to just gardening in general, but then to bring wildlife or to have that nurturing aspect also. I mean, if you've got kids or grandkids, it's going to make them want to be outside and garden, to see that wildlife, being welcomed into your yard. You're helping the ecosystem. You're not just pollinating plants, but they're taking care of some of your insect problem, or you're bringing in that competitive aspect of flowers and wildlife, and it does something in your brain to kind of like feel good, and it feels something like you look forward to,
Totally. Yeah.
come at certain times of the day, and if you're washing your dishes and you look out your window at 5 p.m. and then you see them, and you just know there's this nice rapport that you have in your garden, and it just kind of releases all kinds of great good endorphins in your brain. I'm sure
it does. It's just
smile.
Like this connection.
Oh, everybody, come look at the hummingbird. You can't look at a hummingbird and not smile. So
right, this connection to nature is just, I think that's so important. It just makes you feel great. So I agree, Katie.
And it's so easy, because we've given you all the plants that you need to go after now to bring them to your garden.
And then you tell your neighbors so that they have something for them, and it just keeps going. That's great.
Yep. And now you've got like not just a little island, you've got a landing strip, of like, if you can line up your neighbors, then they're coming in as, in waves.
That's one of the things they talk about with butterflies, the way station, so you have this path and multiple. So let's have a hummingbird way station. Couple quick questions. Marian, what variety of coral bells did the hummers love? You just mentioned that.
Yeah, so it's the carnival series, the heuchera carnivals. They're great plants. The darker colors, you can plant those in full sun. We intentionally did not plant them in full sun. We ended up cutting down the trees because they died, and I was like, I'm not going to move these two, because I moved by hydrangeas. I said, we're going to leave the heucheras up and see what happens. They're supposed to do well in full sun, and my gosh, they did really, really, really well. So I believe it was watermelon, and I know cinnamon stick is a new color, which is absolutely beautiful. That does well.
Peach parfait is gorgeous, and color of the year. Black olive.
Olive is great. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend planting the, like the limeade, the greener ones, but the ones that are the darker colors certainly can tolerate the heat and the sun. It has something to do with the volosa gene that they carry. But yeah, and like I said, I was amazed. I was not expecting to see them, and this little guy just loved them. So totally recommend coral bells.
Okay. We didn't have that in our presentation, and I'm seeing people talking about cannas, and we didn't have cannas in our presentation. So
yeah. And another way to bring in that like tall, like a Mandevilla, it's a way for us Northerners to feel like we're on vacation, even though they like to grow up in the weeds where you are, Justin, but cannas are also, I mean, again, till the frost takes them, they're very hardy in the summertime, whether you're coastal or whether you're in the prairie, Midwest, Great Lakes region. You can feel that tropical vibe from the Mandevilla and the cannas, and they're only going to last the year. You got to let them go, but they're gorgeous while they're open. And again, they come in the pinks and the yellows and the reds, and scarlets. Some have gorgeous bronze leaves as well, open green leaf and bronze leaf for that more metallic look. So you can really customize your little oasis and have a lot of fun with it, and then also attract the birds.
And it looks like somebody was asking about the hummingbird food ratio. So it's 4-to-1. So it's like I use 2 cups of water and a half cup of sugar, but you would reduce that sugar a little bit, maybe to 5-to-1, in order to not attract as many bees. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Right.
yes, I would say, because the second you have, if anyone who's opened up a can of pop at a picnic knows that they sense that sugar and here come the bees. So if you want a slightly more reduced attractiveness to the bees, I also heard that, sometimes the hummingbird feeders come with red base with yellow flowers. You could paint those yellow flowers to be more red, and that will help keep the bees from being even more attracted to the yellow. If they sense that stickiness, the sweetness, they're going to come after it. But you don't just pour the water in and stir it. You want to boil it a bit, but don't make it a syrup. But you want to just incorporate it, cool it down. You can store that in the fridge if you've made a batch, and then weekly you'll take it out and wash your hummingbird feeder. If you've only put a little bit in a feeder, then you can wash it and then add some more to that. You want to cool it before it goes into the feeder. But yeah, not a syrup. And you don't have to use organic. You think, oh, organic, it's better.
It's not.
Sugar, organic sugar is not necessarily what they're into. It's white granulated sugar is fine. Don't want to use like sweeteners. Honey even is bad because it will also spoil a bit more. It will spoil a bit quicker than your typical sugars will. So, and it definitely is going to bring in all the other bugs and insects too.
Yeah, and they said white granulated sugar is really the best. Organic and honey is a definite no. I also heard that if you have yellow flowers on your hummingbird feeder, you can just use red nail polish and paint over those. So
Sharpie, yeah.
Great. Okay. What I like to do at the end of our webinars now is put you guys on the spot and maybe just one tip, if you haven't already spilled the beans, but your favorite tip on attracting pollinators, planting for pollinators. So who wants to go first with their tip?
I'll go first. So maybe something we haven't talked about specifically is hey, don't be afraid of like hanging baskets, or things that overhang a window box. It doesn't all have to be in the ground and growing up, or it could be in pots. I think they actually prefer it when they dangle a bit. It's like a lure, so don't be afraid of adding more hanging baskets along a fence. It's like a typical plant that would go in the ground, throw it in a basket, and then it may be even more attractive that way, because again, it's off the ground where my cat is lurking in the bushes, and it's a little bit higher up for them to perch, and then they're eye level, so you can enjoy them, you can see them.
Yeah, I think my tip would be to plant plants that you have, early blooming, midsummer blooming, and plants that bloom through the fall, so that you have, hummingbirds can feed from, early spring until they're ready to migrate back to their location. So plants that bloom all season would be my recommendation.
Yeah. And I would say don't stress about it. I mean, it's gardening, it's supposed to be fun. There's always an aspect of trial and error, and you may find that sometimes in your specific conditions, the hummingbirds prefer something that totally surprises you. When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, lavender was the lavender in my garden attracted them more than the Pentas, which I still don't understand why, but it was just a nice surprise.
So you had lavender loving hummingbirds.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm going to throw in mine too, because and this just, silly me, it dawned on me, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, where we spend most of our time in our screened-in porch or in our living room. So why not plant the things right outside those two areas so that it was a focal point for when we're sitting around relaxing? So it's super fun. We're on our porch and then we see the hummingbirds just flitting around and making that adorable sound, that bzzz, that goes all around, you know, and you're like, oh, there's a hummingbird. So plant them where you can observe them. I mean, plant them everywhere. But it's really nice to have them in a nice visual point where you can enjoy it. So, okay, we have done our hour. It was wonderful. I absolutely love hummingbirds. I love seeing all the different flowers that we can plant for them, which is wonderful, and all of your tips. So I thank you. I thank Justin, Katie, and Marian. You have been wonderful, giving us lots of tips and explanations. And with that, we're going to say so long for now, and go enjoy your hummingbirds when they arrive in your local area if they haven't already. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.